In this video, we are going to talk about how to create a plan and profile drawing. So as you can see here, I have a sample of what we're going to create, and this shows the plan view of a corridor that we've put together, and it also shows the profile view of the alignment, or I'm sorry, of the elevations as we travel down our corridor and alignment. And in order to start this process, I'll quick show you the model view. So here's our profile that we've created and our surface with our corridor. And in order to create that plan and profile view, we are going to start on a layout tab. And when you first open a layout tab, it might look something like this. The first thing we need to do is go into the page setup manager and make sure that we've got all our print settings correct. So I'm going to, once I'm in the layout tab, I'm going to right click and go to the page setup manager. And we see here I've got two layout tabs. This is the first layout tab. I can modify this layout tab, or I can create a new page setup that I could apply to any tab, and I'll do that here. And I know we're going to print on an 11 by 17 inch piece of paper, so I'm going to name my page setup 11 by 17 and click OK, and that brings up our page setup manager. The first thing we need to do is choose our plotter, and I want to create a PDF of this 11 by 17. That's pretty common practice. And so you can choose any PDF writer that you're comfortable with. I happen to like Qt PDF writer. There's also the built-in DWG to PDF. But I like this Qt PDF writer, so I'm going to choose this one. And then I need to choose my paper size. So I'll go ahead and select 11 by 17. I am going to plot the layout. So I need to also set my plot style table. I'll just use this default AutoCAD color table, and make sure that all of the other settings are what you want them. I generally, I'm going to leave this scale as 1:1, although we're technically not going to plot this to scale today. Also, make sure you have your plot options correct. There are no transparencies in this drawing, but you may want to check that if you have transparencies. We definitely want to plot with plot style, and we'll plot our paper space last, which is a good idea if you've got a bunch of stuff going on in paper space. So if everything looks correct to you, you can go ahead and click OK. And then I want to select that page setup we just created and click Set Current, which you can see changes the size of my paper, and then close. So this is our M view window, our model view window, the hole in our paper looking down through the paper into model space. I'm going to just go ahead and get rid of that for now. So I will highlight it and delete it. And then in a lot of cases you're going to have a title block that you'll have to insert here. I'll just quick create a little title block that'll help us keep track of what we're going to plot in model space. In order to do that, I will first draw an 11 by 17 inch rectangle that's going to simulate our paper. I'm just going to close some of these windows right now. So I'll go into the Home tab and I'll create a polyline. I'll turn my ortho on, and I will draw an 11 by 17 inch rectangle. So we have our rectangle here, same size as our paper. And then let's say we've got, we definitely have a print margin here, right? We can't print all the way to the very edge of our paper, so I'm going to select an offset, maybe 1/4 of an inch offset, and offset this rectangle to the inside. So now we will safely be printing inside the print margin. And then if you had a title block, you could insert it, or you could create your own title block. I'm just going to show you maybe what a title block would look like if you created your own. So you might have something like this. Today we're going to have no title block. But I do want a plan and profile view, right? I want a plan view, so we're going to have a model view window for plan, and we're going to have a model view window for our profile. I'll just click back to my layout. So what I want to do is simulate that first here in Paperspace. So I'm going to draw another rectangle. I'll make sure my O-snaps are on, and I'm going to draw a rectangle to the corner of the inside offset that we just created to the midpoint, and make a second rectangle. And the reason I did that is so I can highlight that object and copy it and paste it right into model space. So I'll just click here to insert it, and I'll have to remember where it is because it's quite small. And if I go back to my layout tab, I want to highlight everything I just drew, and I'm going to move it. So I will type the move command, I'll grab this corner point and zoom in as far as you can on the corner of the white paper. Unfortunately, we can't snap to that corner, but we can get very, very close to it if we zoom in. So as close as you can with your eyes, and then click to place everything, and then zoom back out. So you can see we're safely inside our print margin, and we're nicely set up for a plan and profile. So I'll go ahead and put in my model view windows by typing the mview command, and then I'm going to draw a rectangle that is my model space view. And I can double click on inside that rectangle, inside that mview window, to sort of position generally where I want things. I could zoom way in and try to eyeball it, but there's a better way to do that, and I'll show you what that is. First, I'll create another mview window for our plan view, or for our profile rather. So now we have two holes cut on our paper looking at two different spaces of model space, two different areas in model space at two different scales. Again, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit by hand, eyeballing it. And this is not necessary to do, but just to give you an idea, you can move stuff around. I'll type the regen, R-E-G-E-N command, and it will kind of fix my text. As you zoom in, the text gets a little screwy. And then double click outside of that mview window to get back to Paperspace, or you can simply type PS for Paperspace. So again, if you want to activate that viewport and you can't click on the gray area outside of the viewport for some reason, if you get stuck, you can type PS and enter to get back to Paperspace. So let's go to model space. So here we are in model space. I've pasted over those rectangles I've drawn, and I want to take one of those rectangles and I'm going to move it a little bit. I'm going to move it up next to my profile. And you can see it's pretty small compared to my profile. Notice here again, I still have my pasted object and I just moved one of those smaller rectangles up here. I'm going to scale that rectangle. I'm going to make it 40 times larger just to start, because the default drawing size, as you can see down here, is 1 inch equals 40 feet. So scale of 40 seems like a good place to start. And to do that, I'll highlight my object, type the scale command, or select the scale command from the ribbon. So I'll type scale, I'll specify a corner point, and then I'll type 40 and enter. And that makes my rectangle 40 times larger. So I'm going to copy that rectangle and paste another one, so I have two of them, and I'll put it down here by my corridor. But this rectangle is still very small compared to the profile that I have. This road profile is about 2.5 miles long, and I can't fit the whole profile in this little rectangle, so I'm going to have to make a new profile view. I'm going to come up to the profile drop down and create a surface profile, and it is the same center line that we made our original profile out of. Basically the same profile. I just want to copy it down. So I'm going to draw in profile view. It's the same profile, but I just don't want to see as much of it. So I'm going to come up here to station range, and I happen to know that at this scale I'm going to be able to see about 500 feet of roadway. So starting at station 200 or 2 plus 0, 0, I want to go to 700 or 7 plus 0, 0. And then next, we will fix the profile view height later, and I just want to make sure my data bands are turned off, and then I can create profile view, and I will put it right down here. So click to set your profile view, and let's just zoom in here. It looks like my minimum elevation for this piece of our roadway is about 1515, and if I wanted to give a little buffer I could go to 1510, and we're cut off a little bit here. I like to see a little elevation above our road, so maybe we want to go a little higher. And in order to do that, I'm going to click on the profile view, right click, and go to profile view properties. And here in properties, if I click on the elevations tab, remember we said 1515 or 1510 if I want a little buffer. Your profile is going to be a little different, so you'll have to see how much elevation change you have and where you need to cut your grid off. But I have nothing in my grid under 1510. So 1510 is what I'll use as a minimum. And as a maximum, I want to bump that up a little bit. Let's say 1560. So I have a little buffer in my grid above and below our profiles. So then I'll click apply and OK, and you see it's shrunk that down in height considerably. So now I will move this 40 scale rectangle and see how close I am to having it fit. Well, that looks pretty good. If your profile view is still too tall, there's a few things we could do. We can click on the profile and right click, and this time go to edit profile view style. And in the graph tab, your vertical exaggeration is probably defaulting to 10. And I'll show you what that looks like. So your grid probably defaults, if it's right out of the box, to something that looks like this, where it's a vertical exaggeration of 10 times the horizontal measure. So you can see here, horizontally I have 100 feet, and vertically I have 10 feet. And in order to shrink that down, again, we could go into the profile view style, and in the graph tab, change our vertical exaggeration to, in this case, 2, and then everything fits pretty nicely in my rectangle. So I'm going to go down here now and try to get some of my alignment to fit. So I will move my rectangle something like this, and then I want to rotate my rectangle so that it follows the alignment a little better. Maybe I want something like this. And here we've got the basis for our plan and profile view. Now I'm going to save my drawing. Always good to save. And now I need to create some views. I need to assign a view to this rectangle that we've created. And in order to do that, I will type the view command and hit enter. And we will click new we're going to create a new model view. And I'm going to name this model view profile number 1, let's say. And I have to define the window, so I'm going to click on this radio button. And making sure my O snaps are turned on, I'm going to click on one corner, and notice how it's drawing a rectangle as I drag my cursor across. I'm going to click on the opposite corner, and then press enter to accept is what the command line is telling me. So I can press enter, And we've assigned a new view called Profile 1. And we can click OK and OK. And then let's go to our Layout tab. And that was the profile view that we just assigned. So I want to see what that looks like. I'm going to type the view command again, V-I-E-W, and hit enter. And here's that profile number 1 that we just created. So I want to click on that to highlight it, and then click Set Current. And then Apply. And it's asking me to select viewport for view. That's that model view or MView window that we drew. It's asking me to pick one of these two MView windows, and I want my profile to be in the bottom viewport. So I'll click on that bottom viewport and then click OK. And now it's assigned that view inside this viewport. Now before you zoom or scroll or pan, we need to double click outside of that viewport because we were still active in that viewport. And if I was to zoom, we would lose all that hard work we just went through. So I'll just do an undo here quick. And then again, I'm going to double click outside of that viewport in the gray area, and that brings us back to Paperspace, or I could have typed PS and typed enter. In order to make sure I don't screw this up, I'm going to click on that viewport one time, right click, go up to display locked, and set it to yes. That way, in the future, if I accidentally go into that viewport and start panning and scrolling around, I'm not going to mess up my scale. So double click or type PS to get back into Paperspace, and let's assign a view to this plan window that we want to have. This is going to be a little trickier because I rotated that rectangle. And if I tried to create a view, so new view, we'll just call it something junk. Define window. Notice as I try to zoom in on this window, or as I try to assign it to the window, it's not lining up with my rectangle because my rectangle has been rotated. So this is going to be a little tricky. We have to assign we have to make the window rotate to match our rectangle, and we could do that by trying to pivot with our eye, but that's a little tricky. I'll go back to plan view. What I want to do here is create a new user coordinate system. So I'm going to type UCS for user coordinate system and enter, and then I'm going to type new. I'm going to create a new coordinate system. And it's asking me to specify origin of new coordinate system. And my origin, I want that to be this corner of the rectangle that I drew. So I'm going to click on that and hit enter. And it's asking me again, specify origin of UCS. So I'm going to click on that same point. This time it's asking for a point on the x-axis. And that would be this line, the bottom line of our rectangle. If you can't get the extension tool to follow it, you can always control right click and select nearest, and then you can snap right to that line. So I'll click on that line and hit enter to accept. And now I'm going to go PLAN for plan and hit enter, and I want the current user coordinate system. Now notice everything is rotated except for my rectangle. My rectangle appears to be orthometric even though we rotated it earlier. Now I can go into the view command and create a new view. We'll call it plan 1. And I'm going to define the window. And then I have to click on opposite corners of this rectangle and hit enter to accept, and OK, and OK. Now if I go back to my layout tab and type view, I can assign this new plan view, so plan number 1, set current and apply. And when I click on this viewport at the top of my paper, it will assign the new view. And I can click OK. And again, remember, we're still in model space. This window, this viewport is highlighted. I'm going to double click or type PS for paper space and hit enter. And then I will highlight that model view window, right click, display locked, yes. And of course, save your drawing. So that was a very quick run through of how to create a basic plan and profile view. Now, if your rectangles that we scaled up, if that wasn't exactly a whole number, or if it doesn't match your other measurements, this drawing will not be to scale. But in fact, the way that we drew it, it is to scale, because I'm drawing at 1 inch equals 40, and I scaled that rectangle up 40 times. So I could, if I wanted to, go in here and throw a scale bar in. Make sure you select the plan view, because this profile is not to scale. So if I select the plan view, I want to set it to 40 feet. And now if we plot a PDF without a scale factor, and then send it to a printer on an 11 by 17 without a scale factor, when it comes out, from 0 to 40 should equal exactly 1 inch, and our drawing should be to scale. So again, real quick tutorial on plan and profile view, but it does do the trick pretty well. So thanks for watching.